Hi, and yes, it's dark. I just couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd do something more productive than playing Hades again. Um, what I want to talk about today, it's basically about propaganda, and we're going to look at it mostly from using Ubisoft as an example, and we're going to talk a little bit about Activision as well, because of everything that's happening with Activision right now. From the Ubisoft's perspective, I want to talk about a TV show called Mythic Quest, Raven's Banquet. If you don't know this show, it's called Mythic Quest. It's on Apple Plus, Apple TV, something like that. It's produced by Ubisoft, and it's made by the same people from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's a workplace comedy set in a gaming studio, and yeah, it's kind of good actually, and it's been very well received. All the reviews are very positive, and it's kind of lauded as a rare example of good media about gaming. Now, that's what the show is on the surface. That's what the show is when taken out of context, when analyzed in isolation. But you can't extricate the context from the media. And the context is that it's just flat out propaganda, corporate propaganda. It was commissioned by Ubisoft. Ubisoft approached the people that created the show. And, okay, what's different about the show from, let's say, the Mario movie? First, this is a different kind of adaptation from what we're used to seeing when it comes to gaming. The usual kind of adaptation that we get, like Mario, Monster Hunter, or, God forbid, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, that kind of adaptation it's an adaptation of a video game. It's sold as a product, and it serves as both a quick cash grab and a piece of marketing for the main product, which is the game itself. That until Resident Evil, the movie franchise, became a thing, and that kind of prompted the industry to try and replicate the phenomenon, which they have failed miserably to do thus far. Mythic Quest, on the other hand, it's an adaptation of the gaming industry, not any particular game. It's also sold as a product, and, like I said, it serves as propaganda. Again, it serves as propaganda because it was commissioned by Ubisoft. But how, though? What makes it a piece of propaganda? Well, the show overtly chooses to tackle all subjects of controversy surrounding the gaming industry today, and for the past several years, actually. And in every single instance, the show puts forth opinions that best serve to further the interests of the corporations, mostly AAA publishers in this case. For example, they talk about crunch, right? But one of the characters, one of the programmers, comes forth saying, well, crunch is not a problem. We need crunch in order to get the game done. We just want to get paid overtime for it. Which goes against everything actual gaming developers say. in regards to crunch. In that very same episode, they also talk about the prospect of unionization. And the show just quietly dismisses that possibility. It comes up, but it's never resolved, and the union is never formed. And the issue that prompts this possibility for the developers to unionize is solved by asking their boss to fix the problem for them. That's not how reality works. Okay? These are big companies. Their bosses are executives. They hold all the keys to this kingdom. They make all the decisions. And their only responsibility is not for the well-being of their workers, is not for the artistic integrity of their work. It's for their own personal profit and the company's bottom line. I don't really have to list examples of that. It comes out every single goddamn week, but just out of the top of my head, Blizzard has made the news rounds a couple of times for laying off a bunch of employees, stating that they needed to cut costs while at the same time giving multi-million-dollar bonuses to their top executives. They also talk about workplace harassment, but it's all framed as misunderstandings. They also talk about female underemployment, but the issue is brushed aside by promoting a single female character without actually addressing the issues. And of course, they also talk about monetization. Arguably the most dire subject for this industry, or any other industry for that matter. In the show, they cast Denny Puri, I think it's how it's pronounced. He played this adorable character from that other TV show, Community, to play the head of monetization. Like, he's kind of presented as the bad guy in the office, but they have specifically chosen a very relatable actor, known for a very relatable character, to play this guy. And there is this one episode called The Casino where they make their position very obvious. Like the great visionary of the studio, the de facto boss of that place, he tells the other characters that yes, he doesn't like that guy, the head of monetization. And the monetization practices he's trying to implement are bad, but they're also necessary. You see, that's the visionary artist. He's the guy making the game. He's the guy responsible for the vision of the game. And he's telling us, yes, this is bad, but we need it. And if you have noticed, this is how they go about every single one of these things. They deny nothing, but they normalize everything. All of the things that you have heard or read about, all these things people are complaining on the internet, yes, they exist. No, they're not a problem. Not really. Okay, so why this show? Why am I talking about this show? And how is it supposed to work in the larger context of things? So this show in particular drew my attention because first, it signals the revving up of the mass media apparatus. They, the gaming industry, usually delegate this kind of comments to Twitter threads. Now it's a big budget Apple TV show with a cast of highly regarded stars. And also, perhaps most importantly, because it borrows straight from the handbook of how to handle propaganda that has been devised and implemented by big corporations for decades now. The most prominent example of this would be the Koch Brothers. Maybe you've heard about them, maybe not, but the thing is, they have played a massive hand on the current state of discourse surrounding climate change. There is absolutely a scientific consensus that climate change is real, that it's man-made, that we can and should take drastic measures to address it right fucking now. And there has been a consensus for a very long time. But the Koch brothers and other big oil companies like Exxon, they took upon themselves decades ago to start a massive disinformation campaign. And the Koch brothers were the true visionaries of these efforts. They have spent millions and millions of dollars in think tanks to get studies in scientific journals and establishing study centers in universities, financing public celebrities that can spill their talking points for them, all with the express purpose of muddling the waters around this conversation. And the stroke of genius is they don't have to convince anybody that climate change isn't actually real. They just have to convince them that, well, maybe it's not. You know, there is a scientific consensus, but by putting out their own fabricated papers about it and opinions about it, their own lies according to their own scientists, they make it so that the general population can stand in the middle instead of against them. And that's all the space they need to just keep doing business as usual. And that's precisely what this show is meant to do, in my humble opinion. The first indication of this is, as mentioned, how they tackle these issues. They don't deny anything. Yes, crunch is real and it's a problem, but we need it. Predatory monetization practices are real and they're a problem, but we need them. And arguably the show's target audience isn't even gamers. It's the larger population of strictly non-gamers or just the quote-unquote casual gamers, which I'm not using as a derogatory term. It's just people who enjoy playing video games but don't take these things so seriously and are maybe not as well informed as they could be. The fan servicing in the show is contained to spliced cutscenes from various existing games. But if you swap some of the details of this show, it is perfectly interchangeable with any other workplace comedy out there. You see, right now, gaming is seen as a niche entertainment, but it is not. Not anymore. Not for a very long time. It is the biggest entertainment industry in the planet. It is definitely mainstream. And it will continue following that trend for the foreseeable future. So the idea, I think, is to preemptively co-opt the discussion so that when it becomes de facto mainstream and all these controversies suddenly explode to the larger audience and the exposure to a larger news cycle, the larger population will already be conditioned to see these discussions under a very specific light that benefits the corporations. The show cannot do it on its own, of course, but as I said, this is a signal that the industry at large is ready to get the ball rolling with this process. And I think it's important for me and you to be talking about it because we need to realize that propaganda comes in many forms and it's always all around us. And we need to be ready not just to defend ourselves against its messages, but also to counteract its narrative. Okay, and then there's Activision, right? There was an explosion of news this week or past couple of weeks regarding Activision Blizzard ever since the state of California announced they're bringing a lawsuit against the company based on a couple of years of investigation and so many claims of abuse and harassment and wage theft and whatnot. And I don't mean to be too cynical about this, but I simply cannot bring myself to expect any kind of meaningful, lasting change to come out of it. We've seen all of this play out before, not only in this industry, but any other sector as well. There's always a trove of controversy circling these big corporations, and they always just walk right through it. There's usually this whirlwind of public backlash, but at the end of it, they're always there, still standing, still raking in their profits and doing business as usual. Nothing ever fucking changes. Something that is very different about Activision Blizzard this time around is that apparently somebody actually died. A female developer committed suicide, supposedly on account of continuous harassment from her co-workers. And if I may indulge in a little tangent in this otherwise already long video, I would like to mention that personally I have very strong negative feelings about how sometimes some people compare the act of suicide with taking the easy way out, or any other kind of similar sentiment expressed with a different phrasing. Neurodivergency and depression have historically been shunned by society at large. This kind of argument is very dismissive of the plight that these people face. It shifts the blame from the systems that compound on their problems onto the people in need of help, and it also serves to further ostracize them from society at large. When somebody takes their life, that's not the easy way out. There's nothing easy about taking one's own life. It goes against our most basic and most powerful instincts. Lack of empathy seems the norm nowadays, even though it has always been. And I firmly believe we all know only the weight of our own goddamn crosses. You may not think somebody else's plight is that big of a deal, but when it comes to this point, when somebody has taken their life, you can't genuinely ignore their plight anymore. You can choose not to have empathy, but you can't dismiss their problems and be sincere about it anymore. But anyway, again, I don't expect any fundamental changes to come out of the situation with Activision Blizzard, and we need to be looking to the future. Corporations always have the privilege of thinking long term, and we need to be thinking long term as well. We need to bring our game to their level. We cannot contain ourselves to reactionary talking points. If the gaming industry is getting ready to pull a Koch Brothers on us and roll out this massive, insidious, long-term misinformation campaign, we need to get ready and start talking about it now. And yes, there are more important issues out there, but we just help where we can, right? And I know I personally don't have much of a reach, my channel doesn't have that much exposure, these videos don't get that many views, even for my channel standards. But we can all be talking about it amongst ourselves and to other people we know and to strangers in the internet, I don't know. And raising awareness is the first and most important step in fighting any kind of propaganda. I'll leave a link in the description to a group that supports unionization of game developers. And if you're really good at social stuff, which I'm not, one suggestion I would just throw out there is to organize a bunch of people you know to do some call-ins to your representatives. There's a distinct lack of political representation when it comes to the rights of game developers and oversight of the gaming industry. So yeah, that's kind of what I had to say about that. And yeah, I guess I'll be seeing you around. Till next time, stay safe. Bye.